There have been a lot of rumors that Game Boy Advance games are coming to the Switch in the near future. So you dug up your old Game Boy, stashed away in your junk drawer for like 18 years, and well, it needs 1 or 2 upgrades. Okay, maybe a few more. But it's 2022 and there are countless GBA mods available now. This video will sort of be an intro/guide to all those mods if you ever plan on doing something like that. Computer, bring up the Game Boy Advance slow motion review. The original Game Boy Advance. Naturally, this being the oldest model of the Game Boy Advance lineup, I feel like it needs the most mods. Now, all the mods I did to the system are pretty much because it was unusable anymore, but if your console works perfectly, you can still mod it. Also, I kept all my parts in case I ever want to go back. So, no backlit screen and it still used batteries? I'll start with the screen first. I ordered my parts from a website called Retro Game Shop. I also ordered from Handheld Legends and GeniusGameMods.com, but most of the stuff I got from the Retro Game Repair Shop. And I'm not sponsored by any of these, obviously, but I just wanted to put the links in the description in case you want to check them out. There's quite a few options for screens. Breaking it down, you can put them into categories. They have like-for-like upgrades, basically a screen you can just drop into your GBA, and it's good to go. Now before we go any further, I just want to mention you're going to need some tri-wing screwdrivers, and some of the upgrades really require soldering iron if you want to add more features. Now all the products can sometimes be sold out, so you got to keep an eye out. But for $52.99, you can get the backlit IPS screen. You can basically disconnect your old screen, slap in this new one, and you're ready to go. You might need to cut some plastic from your housing to fit the screen, and you don't have to solder anything if you don't want the ability to adjust the brightness. They also have a new screen that's laminated, and it's an ITA screen. It's basically the lower screen of a DSi. So basically it's comparable to the AGS 101 SP model. But for this one they ran it through a laminator, and that's how they got it laminated. Okay, I didn't run it through a laminator, but people have been waiting for this screen because it has no ghosting and better colors and a brighter backlight. But unfortunately this one's sold out at the moment. But if you want to connect your Game Boy Advance to the TV, then you'll need either the AV out kit or the HDMI kit. They're about the same price, but at the time when I got the AV out kit, the HDMI one was sold out, so I went for the AV out. You're going to have to solder for this modification, so it's not too complicated. In fact, the instructions on the websites are very good. And they also have a YouTube video showing the instruction process in detail. If you do solder, it does add brightness levels, as well as a color changing option by either touching the touch sensors or holding down L and A, or holding down the button combination. The AV out Game Boy I have lets you connect to the TV, and you press down L and R and select for about 5 seconds. I also bought a AV to HDMI converter, but they sell it on the website as well. It's important to read the descriptions like I said, so you don't want to buy the wrong shell. I bought the IPS ready shell for this AV out, and it was supposed to be a drop-in ready. So I bought the wrong shell, and so I had to order an extra one. And speaking of shells, let's talk about those. The IPS ready shells, technically you can use the original shells for the IPS ready screens, you just have to cut the shells in order to make them fit. But if you buy these IPS ready shells, they're already pre-cut, and they fit the bigger IPS screens. It's a bit confusing, but the descriptions clearly tell you which ones to buy, so don't be a dummy like I was. Fortunately, the shells aren't that expensive, so if you order the wrong one, you can just keep it as an extra one. Now if you want to talk premium, that's where these UV shells come in. They're for the IPS screens. They're more expensive, but they're better quality, and they have special designs. But that's pretty much for the screens. Now I have some previous videos on some mods and shell swaps if you want to check them out. But I'm not professional or anything, so I suggest the videos on the Retro Gaming website, and just take your time doing the mods and you'll be fine. Also make sure to test the screens before you install it, because they do not take refunds on installed screens. Okay, so on to the battery. The two main battery kits I see people talk about are the ones from that Retro Gaming Shop or Handheld Legends. Now the one I wanted was sold out at the time, so I actually went with another website I found, Genius Game Mods, which ironically is now sold out. They're all basically the same thing. They upgrade your Game Boy Advance to have USB Type-C, which is a nice upgrade. And the one I have also lets you add wireless charging to the motherboard. This one was a bit cheaper at $19.99, but it didn't include a battery, so I had to go and buy my own separate battery. But like I said, the USB Type-C is a really nice upgrade because I don't have to go search for a proprietary charging cable like the SP or the Micro. Now for these batteries, you do have to cut some plastic in the battery compartment to make it fit, but it's just a simple cut with some flush cutters. And the wireless charging was just a simple solder to these 2 points right here. Now I can wirelessly charge my Game Boy. And that's about pretty much it for the Game Boy Advance. You can also buy the stickers, and you can also buy another speaker. And they actually do have another mod to make the speaker louder with an amp. But let's move on to the SP. The Game Boy Advance SP. I mean, this one basically has everything the original one gets modded for. Backlit screen, rechargeable battery. So why mod it? Well, you may want a new shell, or your screen is broken, or something's missing. But most important, you have the original AGS-001 model. You know, the one with the frontlit screen instead of the backlit screen, like the AGS-101. So the screen mods are pretty much like the original Advance. There's a drop-in version, and then there's a version where you need to cut your shell, or you can buy a pre-cut IPS ready shell. I modded my SP first, and I went with the IPS screen, so I bought an IPS ready shell along with it. But nowadays, they also have TV out kits for the SP. And just like the other ones, if you don't want to solder, you don't have to, but you won't have those brightness controls. But the good thing about the SP is that it does have a physical button control for the brightness if you wanted that feature. It is a little more complicated on this one because you're going to have to, I soldered straight to the ribbon cable, so it is a little fragile. They also offer different colored lenses of your choosing, and again, you need to test the screens out before you install them. Now as for the shells, it's the same thing as the Advance. If you want a regular shell, they have them on there, and even some translucent ones. But if you want to get extra fancy, you can do the UV ones again. I actually did a shell swap on my channel with the Naruto one if you want to check that one out. I have the purple one here, but if you want to be extra fancy, there are some premium shells that are UV just like the GBA ones. They have some highly detailed graphics. They have some including Mega Man and Pokemon, and there's some of the Pokemon editions from the Gen 3 legendaries. Now these ones over here are new. I haven't seen them before. They have Pikachu, Mario, like another Mario block one. Now in terms of the battery for the SP, it's a little more straightforward. You can replace the existing battery with a similar one. All you have to do is unscrew the lid and replace it with the new one, and they're about $6.99. In my opinion, the SP is easier to mod just because of the form factor. Although the hinge of the screen seems more complicated, the square body of it actually makes it easier to work with. They sell stickers as well for the SP, and the speaker is even easier to replace than the Game Boy Advance. It's just a drop-in. They sell some accessories too, including an adapter for a 3.5mm aux. The SP does have more mods that you can do, such as USB Type-C or adding an headphone jack, but they're more of a DIY sort of thing, and they're a bit more complicated. But overall, that's pretty much it for the terms of the SP mods, regarding the mass-produced ones at least. And I did want to talk about some that I actually don't have, and that's the Macro and Slate GBAs. The Macro, well, it's basically get your DS like this, and you snap the screen off, and yeah, you don't need that anymore, throw it away. The Macro is basically the bottom part of the DS, so you technically make a DS Lite into a GBA only console, but it's perfect if you have a DS with a broken top screen. Since I don't actually own any of them, I'll put some videos in the description below of some other YouTubers I've seen make these mods. Now again, I'm not sponsored by them, and I don't think they even know I actually exist. Just thought I'd include this down below. Now the Macro is an interesting mod because it has an aluminum metal shell, but I've seen people get creative with this custom bar running along the top. To be honest, it is the perfect mod if you do have a broken DS Lite, but it does require some soldering and a lot of modification to your shell. And you also have to remove the digitizer from the screen. And all these components are available on the Boxy Pixel website. So the Macro is great for a broken DS, or if you like the form factor and feel, but it is a little more complicated than the other mods. Now onto the Slate. Similar to the Macro, it does have a metal shell, aluminum metal shell. The Slate uses the SP, so it's the Game Boy. It's technically a Game Boy SP mod, but the form factor changes to more of a Game Boy Original or Game Boy Color. Basically, it's an SP that no longer folds, but it's a more premium build, which also happens to be the most expensive one. Unlike the Macro, you do have to buy their custom aluminum shell from the website, because the Macro allows you to use your existing plastic DS shell. But I feel like the point of the Slate, just like the Macro, is for that premium feel. But like I said, it's more expensive. You also have to buy a new screen that they also sell on the website, which is $64.99 on their website. So at a minimum, you're going to be spending about $160 if you already have an SP, that is. Again, I don't have a Slate, but I'll link a video on the bottom just so you guys can take a look at it if you want. Now again, I'm not sponsored. Why do you guys have to remind me how many subscribers? Now pricing. Let's assume for a second you have nothing. No Game Boys, anything. So you want to get one and you want to mod it. Well, depending on the pricing and where you look. Let's look at the Advance first. That one goes for about 60 to $100 depending on the condition. So around 65 for a pretty good deal. Now that's 65 for the Advance itself. Plus, you're going to need an IPS screen, so that's another $60. And assuming you want a new shell, about another $15 on that. And you want to upgrade to a rechargeable battery, let's do another $25 on that. So now we're up to $165 minimum. That's where the dilemma comes in. You can find these modded consoles online for usually around $200, give or take, depending on where you look. So for about $50 more, you can save yourself the trouble and buy one that's already modded. If you're gonna buy a modded Game Boy, then why are you watching this video? I thought you wanted to mod it yourself, huh? I knew it. Well, buy one then, you son of a bitch. I'm just kidding. You can buy a modded Game Boy modder yourself. I don't care. So on the SP, that one's a little more expensive, at around about $100, maybe $80 if you get lucky. So that's $100 plus the $60 kit for the IPS screen, and another $15 for a shell, and $10 more if you want to get a new battery. So your total comes out to about $185, again, give or take. Now you can see why the modded Game Boys at $200 are starting to look like a pretty good deal. But at this price point, you can buy, I don't know, a Switch Lite, but there's no fun in that. Well, that's about it for all the major Game Boy Advance mods. Just make sure to read those descriptions and take your time and watch those videos on those websites that are really helpful. Oh, I almost forgot. The Game Boy Micro. Well, the Micro actually doesn't have any mods because it's perfect. Oh, just kidding. But you can get some new screen covers. I did get a new battery, but the shells are another issue. You see, the Game Boy Micro has a metal outer shell, but the inner shell is made from the most fragile material known to man. I've seen a lot of people online, like even opening your Game Boy Micro is a risk. Because if that inner shell is broken, it's all over. And I haven't really seen any replacements online, but it is made from ABS, which now that I think about it, it's the same material you can use in a 3D printer, which I have. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm gonna say this one more time. Give me the Game Boy Micro parts I need.